Hey everyone, it's Zahava. Welcome back to the channel. We are going to be doing a March reading wrap up in today's video, and technically, though we are not at the end of March, there's still a couple of days left in the month. I had some time to film today, and I just got my hair colored yesterday, and I was feeling kind of good about that, so I figured we would just sit down together and talk about all of the books that I read in March, let you know what I finished, what I didn't finish, what I have coming up for the rest of the month, which is only about 3 days, and then what I'm going to be reading, hopefully going into April. I also released a couple of videos ago, which you guys could go back and check in the most recent video history, a list of the books that I do want to read in April. But as you may have imagined, that probably will change because even though I've pre-selected some books in April, I would be happy if I got at least to half of those without adding some newer ones into the mix. So we will see how we go. But yeah, let's just get started. I have some notes typed up here because I'm trying to stay more on track for you guys, you know, and try and give you more like cohesive content. I hope that the camera is, okay, so let's get started. I want to talk to you guys first about the DNFs that I had this month. There were quite a few. So there were 7 DNFs this month, both in print and either on audio or in electronic format. So I'll talk to you guys about what those are. Just have a messy pile of books behind me. But the first book that I DNF'd this month is Tiger Tiger, which is supposed to be a memoir based on a lady's, Margot Ferroso's, own experience of sexual abuse. I did not like this. It didn't read like a memoir. I got bored of it at chapter 10, and I feel kind of bad about it too, because I know that the author passed away about 6 years after writing the book. And I don't know, I just feel like DNFing her book is like me almost, you know, abusing her again, if that makes sense. But it was just not a good book. I had high hopes for it. I purchased this one on eBay. I can't remember where it came from. I think from Thrift Books in the USA. It is an advanced reader copy, but I don't know. Either way, I'm unhauling this one. It really wasn't good. The next book that I DNF'd is the Kamogawa Food Detectives. That one also, I don't know, maybe I'm just not the market for cozy mystery or cozy in general. Like, I'm not someone that's likely to pick up a copy of the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, but or anything of that nature. So I don't know, cozy doesn't work really well for me. I had some feelings about the Kamogawa Food Detectives. I think that maybe cozy, and it's just a theory, so feel free to discuss it with me in the comments if you'd like to, but I feel like the cozy genre, or maybe because of the fact that it was Japanese, things might have been lost in translation when it was translated from Japanese into English. And I think that probably a lot of what a Japanese reader would absorb or necessarily understand in terms of the voice and the prose and the I guess jive of the novel probably doesn't really translate well into English, which is why I think I was bored of that book, and I ended up DNFing it. Much as I had high hopes for it, it just didn't work for me. The next book that I DNF'd is Earth Abides. I realized that there's a series. There's something going on. It's a book-to-screen adaptation. I'm not really sure if it's a series, a miniseries, or a movie, but again, I don't know, I had started out annotating this book, and then, I don't know, I just got like bored of it. I'm not even sure what page I got to because I took out the bookmark, so I'm not even sure how far I went, but that's going to be a DNF for me and probably an unhaul. It'll end up at the thrift store because it's not even fully annotated, so it's not like I could resell it to people who are looking to share a reading experience with me. Yeah, it's just gonna end up at the thrift. I also DNF'd Bad Cree. If you guys were here and you saw the latest library haul video that I did, Bad Cree didn't work out for me. I think I DNF'd it. I had said to myself that I was gonna read it until page 100. In the end, I ended up DNFing it at 50 pages in. I found it really boring, really slow. The plot was going nowhere. I don't know. It just was not working for me. So that was a DNF. On audio, I ended up DNFing Middle Game by Shannon Maguire. And the reason that I did that is because, again, it was just a 500-page chunker. It was playing really slowly. I lost interest in it about 38% of the way through. But basically, if you guys are unfamiliar with this title, which I should have here on screen for you guys, is like, it's about I don't want to say eugenics, but it's about creating a super class of people. There's an inventor, and it's kind of like a Frankenstein-esque type of story where the monster that you build sort of exceeds your expectations and then becomes something bigger than you are. But essentially, it's a story about twins who are laboratory bred and raised to be these superhuman specimens, and they are the subject of an experiment where they're being observed by their creators type of thing. So the book jumps forward and back in time between the origins of the twins' creation to what they're going through in their lives as we meet them contemporarily. And I don't know, it's just like I had higher hopes for this, for the pacing, I think, of this novel. And I think that's ultimately what lost me, is just it was so long and so drawn out and very detail heavy without a lot of action. And I think that I just got bored and I did not want to go. And though I could see like how it could be potentially a very titillating and very interesting and certainly very well thought out oeuvre, it was just not doing it for me. Again, I got bored, and 38% of the way through, I DNF'd it. And I was really disappointed too, because the Seanan McGuire that I read in the Black Feathers short story anthology was fantastic. So I had very, very high hopes for where this author was going to be going. But yeah, I don't know. So middle game is actually the first in a series, and obviously I'm not going to be continuing in that series. It just wasn't for me. Next, I have a copy of the only nonfiction that I started this month and ultimately DNF'd, and this is Thwarting Enemies at Home and Abroad. It is about counterintelligence, and it is dry as, okay? It is so boring, it is outdated, and there's even a publisher's note at the beginning that tells you that the foundational aspects of counterintelligence are kind of timeless, so they didn't feel the need to update or, since the author, I think, has passed away. So anyway, it's very dated and very boring, very dry. So unless you're super into this subject and you want to read like a textbook type of thing, I would not suggest this. I thought it was going to be a lot more interesting. I couldn't get past 22 pages. Okay? Really not for me. I don't want to say it's a bad book, but it's not for me. It's got very high, I don't want to say very high ratings, but it has very respectable ratings on Goodreads for the audience to which it's intended. It's not intended for me, obviously. I tried, but no. I soft DNF'd The Last Session by Julia Bartz on NetGalley. I got an arc for that one. I was going to start it. I was happily enthralled until I got triggered by the character's first name and the setting, and I'll tell you why. So the main character's name is Thea, and she works in a psych ward where a catatonic patient comes in, and she has to kind of figure out what is going on with this patient. And I happen to know from the blurb of the book, or the back of the book, even though it's an ARC and like the publisher's blurb, let's say, that she ends up getting into this like sex cult, and it's like a whole story that happens there. But I didn't really make it that far in the story, because I think in chapter 2 I realized her name was Thea and the patient that walked in was catatonic and not speaking, and she was trying to get this patient to speak, and it was giving me silent patient. So I was triggered by that because the protagonist in Silent Patient's name is Theo, and obviously the patient is in question is silent and mute and just, doesn't speak. So it was drawing too much of a parallel for me, it being, taking place in a psych ward, the characters being Thea and Theo, but each of them having a patient that they had to coax into talking. I was like, what is this? And I realized that The Last Session is going to go on a completely different trajectory. I read The Silent Patient. I loved The Silent Patient. And it had nothing to do with anybody getting involved in a sex cult or anything like that. So like I said, I was triggered by that. I don't know, wasn't in the mood. So I soft DNF'd this book, but I may go back to it after I get through a few more books on my TBR, So anyway, that was a soft DNF for me. So now let's talk about some books that I completed this month. The first one that we're going to talk about is The Foxglove King by Hannah Whitten. I was left kind of bitter. I don't want to say like disappointed with this book, but for me it was just okay. And if you guys have been here a minute, you will know that I did pick up from Book Outlet the second book in this trilogy, which I may now or may not read. I don't really know. Probably I will read it because I did end up spending the money on it, but I don't know if I'm in a hurry to read that book because this book, I think, is a romantasy, except that there's no romance, there's no connection, there's nothing happening in this book. It didn't give me anything. So I don't know if you guys have read this book. Maybe it's just a question of it being the intro to a series and then book 2 is better. I don't know. If you guys want me to read book 2 because you're familiar with it and you know that I'm like totally reading the romance angle wrong, let me know in the comments, because I ultimately felt like I was cheated out of like what this book was supposed to be. And also this book for some reason was in the adult section, and I don't really think that it was giving very adult themes. I feel like it was more of a YA, or if I'm really stretching, an NA type novel. So I did finish it, but I felt it was just like okay. The next print book that I finished is When Among Crows by Veronica Roth, and I really liked this one. I really liked it. It was a bit shocking, but I'm glad that I own a copy. Okay, so Veronica Roth of Divergent, Insurgent, The Chosen Ones, so she's written like a whole bunch. I haven't read her YA or NA stuff because it's not generally a genre that I read, but this is one of her adult novels. It's not a thick one. It's a novella of about 150 pages or so. And I just remember, I will never forget this for the rest of my life, the shock and horror that I felt while reading page 64. And it's really from like a bottom paragraph of page 63 until like a top paragraph of page 65. There is a horrific physical mutilation that, to me, I don't know, it just came across on the page as such a visceral thing that I almost felt it happening to myself, and I started screaming, and my whole family was like, what's going on with you? And it is because of page 64 in this book where like I have like, I don't know, trauma that I can't imagine. So, which if you guys have read this book, you will know what I'm talking about. And if you want to discuss it in the comments, we absolutely can, but I'm going to keep the video spoiler free for those of you who want to read the book on your own. I would say it's well worth the read. I love the writing of it. I like the vibe of it. I like that it was such a small book because it was a really easy win for me to finish. And I'm looking forward to the second installment of this series, which is coming out, I believe, in September, which I can promise you I will be buying potentially even at full price. So if you're asking if I recommend this book, 110%. Love, love, love. The next book that I read is The Song of Achilles. And this one I actually read partially in print and partially on audio. And in the end, I felt like it was just okay. And I am probably not going to be reading any more Madeline Miller. It's nothing against the author. I just think that like I didn't, there was something that's kind of very petty for me that, that I mean, I don't really think it's a spoiler because it's not. I don't think it's a spoiler. So this book actually has to do with the story of Achilles as told through the eyes of Patroclus, who was his supposed lover. And I don't know. I didn't like the ending. I didn't like the ending of this. I didn't like that it was told in first person. And this might be a spoiler, so, you know, feel free to skip forward to the next chapter if you don't want to hear what I have to say about this, which occurs to me that yes, Angela, I will put chapters for this particular video for you. Wink, wink. Like, subscribe. The story is written in the first person through Patroclus's eyes, and it doesn't say that he dies. Like, so I don't like that. I feel like when a first-person novel is there, such as The Lovely Bones, if you are going to be a dead narrator, then say it at the beginning. Don't make me go through this whole fucking story just to tell me that you're dead in the end. Like, I was so disappointed with the ending of this book that, like, I don't think I'm ever going to pick up. This is going to be an unhaul for me. Whenever we do an unhaul video, this is definitely going to be in the pile. And you guys will remember this video, am I having said that? Because, like, I just did not... This is like a 2-star reef for me. I did not enjoy this book because the ending ruined it. like ruined. So the next book that I completed, I completed 2 books in what I believe is going to be a 3-book series, only there's 2 books out right now, and I completed both of them this month, and they're both by T. Kingfisher. I don't have them because they were library reads. The first one is What Moves the Dead, and the second one is What Feasts at Night. And I want to say that the books were different. They hit me differently. So let's talk first about What Moves the Dead. So What Moves the Dead is a retelling of The House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, which is a book or story that I am unfamiliar with. I have never read any Poe, but I could not tell you if this retelling does the story or the original story justice or not. I don't really know. It was okay for me. I liked it enough to want to read the second one, especially since I borrowed it from the library, so it was very easy for me to DNF if I decided that I didn't like it, but I tend to like T. Kingfisher's writing very much. I am working on getting to her backlist, and I just really, really preferred What Feasts at Night to What Moves the Dead. I will tell you that if you have mushroom sensitivity, you may want to stay away from What Moves the Dead, but What Feasts at Night is really good too. I found that Kingfisher was able to take a lot more liberty with Alex Easton, who is our protagonist, and I just found it a lot funnier. Like, there was a lot more character in the prose. There was more room for Kingfisher to explore Easton as a protagonist. And I just found myself laughing a lot because there's a lot of sardonic black humor, and that was really speaking to me. So if that's the kind of thing that you guys like, I will say that in order to appreciate where Easton is in the second book of this trilogy, you do kind of have to read What Moves the Dead, because that will enable you to see the character growth in the clearest way possible. So I had a really great time with What Feasts at Night. I don't know, the characters are more lively, more fully developed, and it's really, really working. It's really working. And also I should mention that both books are really small. They're about 150 to 160 pages each. So it's really great if you're looking for a nice, easy read, a palate cleanser, or anything of that nature. Another library book that I completed in the month of March is Thistlefoot. Some of you may have heard me talk about that in my library reading vlog, so I'm not going to get too much into it in this vlog, but just to let you know that I really enjoyed that book. It was easily a 3.5-star read for me. I would recommend it and probably pick it up if I saw it in a thrift store just to have it on my shelf, but I'm not likely to reread it. So I think that the only reason that I would pick up Thistlefoot if I saw it at a discounted price is because there were many moments while I was reading it that I really wanted to annotate it, and that I couldn't do that because it was a library book, and I found that a little disappointing. So in general, if you like Russian folklore, any tales of Baba Yaga, magical realism, or anything of that nature, Thistlefoot is a good read. It's a good time. I had a good time with it. If you're interested in more of my thoughts about the struggles that I had with that book, go and check out my library haul video. The link for that will be down below. Yet another library print book that I completed in the month of March is Dogs of War, which was my very first Adrian Tchaikovsky. And man, oh man, did I love that book. I loved it. So I know that this is also the first in a trilogy, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know how many books are going to be coming out. Like, I know that we're waiting for the publication of the 3rd book, but I don't know if this series is going to go further than 3 books. But I have to say, Dogs of War, I don't know if you guys have read it. Now, as I said, it's my first Adrian Tchaikovsky. I have a copy of Service Model. I have 2 other Tchaikovsky books on my TBR whose titles are not coming to mind right now, but I can tell you that I will read as much Tchaikovsky as possible. He's definitely an author on my radar now, thanks to you wonderful people at BookTube who have sensitized me to this name and made it a household name for me. So if I have any fellow booktubers watching, thank you, thank you, thank you, especially Willow of Willow Talks Books, who whose channel I will also link below, who does amazing work and who has a very similar book taste to what I have. So I've gotten a lot of good recommendations from her. Now, to my knowledge, Willow did not specifically recommend Dogs of War, but I happened to find it at the library when I was there, and because I know that I agree with a lot of her opinions on books, and I just decided to try Tchaikovsky. And first of all, I want to say it was my first 5-star read of the month. So yay, we found one. We found a 5-star read. I basically had all the feels with this one. I laughed, I cried, I was gutted, I was enthralled. Even as a cat owner, this book made me feel nostalgic for the dogs that I had growing up. If you know, you know. It had a lot of really good themes about self-awareness, identity, identity, loyalty, family, learning to trust yourself and believe in yourself and avoid being gaslit by people, and just, you know, how to trust yourself and how to recognize when things are not always as they seem, and just really nice concepts. Basically, the dogs of war are these elite fighting bioforms that are designed to be essentially weapons. However, they are more or less sentient and can think for themselves. And our protagonist, I think his name is Rex. I'm not sure. I'll write it across the screen because I forgot. Actually, like, he's starting to wonder if what he's seeing versus the information he's getting from Master is like on the up and up, you know? So like he sees things and he's getting conflicting information, such as some humans are good, some humans are bad. Master is good. I have to do what Master says. If I do what Master says, it makes me feel good. So because I feel good and because I'm getting that positive reinforcement, I feel like I'm a good dog. And he's always saying how he wants to be a good dog. And it is just like, you know, Rex becoming more and more sentient, more and more self-aware, more in doubt as to what he knows and believes, and it's just like an internal conflict, and it's just fantastic. And the supporting cast of characters are equally fantastic. And for anybody who has read this book, can we just talk about bees? Like, what a fantastic concept to have a whole swarm become an entity. So rather than having a singular bee, it's the swarm itself that is the character in this novel, which I just think is so delicious and fantastic. And I just can't wait to read the other 2 installments. So Dogs of War, if you haven't read it, go check it out. For me, it was a 5-star read and I just loved it. And so the last physical print book that I read this month is Here One Moment by Liane Moriarty. And I realized that there's a lot of, you know, conflicting opinions about this book, but I think generally it was received really, really well. I really enjoyed it. It was also a 5-star read. It was my second 5-star read of this month. I just really like the idea of just the discussion of fate and serendipity and destiny and whether or not we can change our futures based on what we believe. So if you guys are unfamiliar with this book, it's basically starts out where these people are on a plane from Hobart to Sydney, and then this lady who's crazy, this crazy psychic lady, gets up and starts predicting the cause and age of death of all of the passengers on this plane. And then the rest of the story takes you through some points of view of various characters as they deal with the aftermath of their predictions. And we get to see whether or not those predictions come true. And we get to find out a little bit more about this psychic lady who is the only first person narrator in this novel, whereas like the point of view characters are all third person narration. So it's really interesting. And yeah, just like a nice exploration into the human condition and what we put up with for the reasons that we decide to put up with them, and in terms of like family obligations, work obligations, the decisions that we make and why we're making those decisions, and what the results of those decisions can do to impact our futures. So Here One Moment, also a 5-star read for me. I highly recommend. Now we can talk about some audiobooks. So the first audiobook that I completed this month is The Wood at Midwinter by Susanna Clarke, and I did not like it. that was just, it was really, really bad. And I was very upset about that because I super duper loved Piranesi, and I gave Piranesi 5 stars, and I actually ordered a copy of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which I think is the name of her debut other successful novel, Susanna Clarke. However, The Wood at Midwinter? What was that? It is like, okay, so first of all, I borrowed this from Libby. Thank frickin' God that I did not spend money on this title. It was a 30-minute audio, and that includes an afterword by the author. So it's almost like you're paying all this money for a fable about a girl that goes into the woods and becomes a mother to various animal figures that are there, in apparent defiance of what a traditional gender role for a girl would be. And I don't know, it was just trying to be something that I could not grasp. I didn't understand it. I don't know. It was frankly a waste of my time. I do not suggest that anybody go out and spend money on that book. If you guys want to read it, get it from your library, borrow it from a friend, listen to it on audio, but like, please do not spend money on this book because what a waste of my time, and I can never get it back. Yet the book itself is only 64 pages long, so you be your own judge, but I was super disappointed in that one. Okay, Water Moon. Water Moon. Here's a hot topic, people. Okay, Water Moon for me was just okay. I didn't make it from start to finish. I didn't DNF it. It was like just okay for me. A 3-star read. I don't know if it's because, as in so many of my confessions to you guys, I like to listen to audiobooks when I'm working, but I don't always give them their due attention. And I don't know if Water Moon, or even magical realism in general, is something that I necessarily resonate with. Or it could be that it was a translation, or it could be that I just wasn't in the mood or wasn't paying attention. It was just okay for me. There was a lot that was happening, and I think that it like, I don't know, it was just like missing something for me. It was missing some sort of a high stakes. It was missing some sort of a hook for me. And I just felt like it came like kind of flat. But that could also be because of the genre, which is supposed to be like a cozy magical realism, you know, friends to lovers, kind of nice little fantasy tale. But I guess it was just kind of sickeningly too sweet for me. And I don't know, I just, I feel like I wanted to like it so much more than I did. And yeah, we can debate that in the comments if you want, but I am glad that I listened to it on audio, because I find that it's much easier to understand the character names and the pronunciations of their names and things like that if I'm listening to it on audio. But I don't know, people had been talking up this book so much, and I really expected a lot more from it. Like, I was really thinking it was going to be a 4 or 5 star read. If it's a 3.5, that's me being generous. So I was not a big fan of Water Moon. I can't exactly put my hand on why, but I think it was a lot of back and forth and a lot of trying to create tension where tension wasn't necessarily there naturally. And when things feel a little bit forced, that's when I tend to back away. So I did complete it, but it was kind of flat for me in certain areas. Another audiobook that I completed this month is Maeve Fly, and Maeve Fly was a wild ride. It was a wild ride. Okay, so I know that this has kind of mid reviews, and that's fine, I get it, but I really feel like it's a niche read for sure. It is about a girl in her early 20s where her and her best friend work for Disneyland, and they play some popular ice princesses, and you know, she's just going through her life kind of dead to everything that's around her, Maeve. Her grandmother, who is an aged and forgotten Hollywood starlet, is really ill, and she tries to move in to take care of her because she wants to rekindle a relationship with her grandmother, and also it helps that she's living in like a bigger house and, you know, from an old Hollywood starlet and stuff. And Maeve, I feel, is like kind of disconnected with the world around her. She's desperately trying to connect with people, and even sometimes building up relationships in her head to be more precious than they actually are to the people that she's in those relationships with. And I don't mean necessarily romantically, although it could include that, but her best friend that she works in the park with, it's like Maeve has kind of an unhealthy attachment to people. And I think she's just feeling very dead inside, and she keeps trying to get that dopamine spike. So she goes through various things. She's trying to keep herself feeling alive. And it's just like a very interesting, I guess, study into what people will do to sort of self-stimulate. And it's not a healthy thing. It's not a healthy thing in Maeve's case. So it is wild. I picked it up mostly because the cover is fantastic. And I did give this book 4 stars. So clearly it's not a question of it having been an audio read. I really enjoyed this one. I was gutted at the end because I wanted... I don't want to say what I wanted, but I wanted a different ending. Let's just say that I wanted something different, and the way that it ended, I was gutted. So we could also discuss that in the comments if you would like to discuss Maeve Fly, but I'm going to keep this, at least this portion of the video, spoiler free. The next audiobook that I read was actually an ARC from NetGalley, and it was called Evoker, and Evoker has to do with a futuristic society in which everybody is implanted with a chip. You don't have to be, it's not like it's forced upon you, but most people do, because it's like a social media type of experiment. It enhances your life experience, and you can see things with that chip implanted in your body that other people can't see. So there's this one scene where our protagonist is sitting in a restaurant and he's looking at boys kind of fighting over a table, but he doesn't realize, because he doesn't have his chip installed, that they're actually playing a game. So he just thinks that they're making weird motions in the air, but they're not. He can't see what these boys are seeing. So it's this type of implant that people can opt to put into their bodies, and it's got like a whole like software that's proprietary, and they call them Evos, and Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to explain, but it's got some lit RPG elements. I mean, I suppose I could be a little bit clearer if I just read you my notes, but it says, so Evoker is the first in a series. It's about a 47-year-old man with 2 grown daughters, one who's a programmer and who slips her sister a virus before disappearing, and society has these chips called Evo chips, which they integrate into their bodies, and these can enhance the life experience. And Michael has been resisting them, but in order to find his missing daughter, he has no choice but to install it. And then, together with the coaching of his youngest daughter, they set out on a search to find the eldest through a series of clues that she has left them. So, again, it was okay for me. I don't think I will be continuing in this series. It was a little bit all over the place. There was a lot of information to absorb. Michael is dealing with the after effects of the death of his wife from cancer, and it's just about, I guess, a family who has separated from one another through hardship, kind of coming together and finding each other again for support reasons. And also because his eldest daughter has stumbled upon some technology that, like, all the baddies kind of want, and she has to disappear herself for her own safety. So if it sounds like I don't know what this book is about, that might be a reflection of the book itself. The last book that I read this month, which I have completed again on audio, was also a NetGalley ARC, and that was called Murder by Memory, which was a short novella. The audiobook is only 2 hours, so it's really easy to read if you're on a plane, on a train, if you're just, commuting to work, potentially 1 hour there, 1 hour back. It is kind of a cozy mystery a la Jessica Fletcher from Murder, She Wrote. It has to do with a detective who is on a spaceship that doesn't otherwise have a police force. The detectives are basically there to separate truth from lies, and Dorothy Gentleman is one of those detectives, and basically what happens is one day she just wakes up and she's in a body that isn't hers, and she realizes that, and that also in another area of the spaceship that she is working on, there's a dead body. She is, kind of confused as to why she's not in her body, but she knows that she has to go investigate the cadaver that is there. And at first she doesn't think it's anything serious until other things start to happen, and she says, maybe this is more nefarious than I thought it was. And then she has to put on her real detective hat and go in search of a potential murderer on this spaceship. And then, the whole mystery is kind of divulged. But basically, it is kind of a cute story about an elderly lady. Again, think Jessica Fletcher from Murder, She Wrote, because our protagonist is roughly the same age, except that you're on a spaceship and it's just a good time, a really easy good time to have. The story wraps up really nicely and leaves room for future additions to this series. So really easy read. Not much more to say about that. Lastly, I want to talk about some books that I am in the middle of. The first of which is Fingersmith by Sarah Waters, of which I am doing a reread on audio. I read Fingersmith a bunch of years ago, and I don't know, it's just one of those books that makes me feel really cozy. I just love the vibe of it. I was going to do a more in-depth video about this book a little further down the line when I had some plans to do a future video about movies or screen adaptations that I feel are better than the books, and Fingersmith actually falls into that category. However, I did want to reread Fingersmith because, as I said, when I'm working, I do like to have an audiobook playing, but I often find that it's easier for me to have a book playing that I already know, that I'm familiar with the story, because then I don't have to totally pay attention, but I can still have the noise on in the background. So Fingersmith kind of did it for me. I still haven't finished it yet. I think I still have, at the point at which I'm recording, another 13 hours left in it, but that's totally fine for me because I know the story and I just don't have the patience for anything else right now while I'm working. But I am also in the middle of another audiobook called Cold Eternity by S.A. Barnes. And this one is also, it's like a horror thriller. There's a lady who is stuck on a spaceship and there's strange things happening, and I'm still kind of into it. I'm only about 25% of the way in, but I'm unfamiliar with Barnes's writing, and this is also an arc from NetGalley, so I'm listening to that one. She's basically on the run because she discovered a political scandal and people, I think, are trying to scapegoat her. So she's in disguise and she's got to take a job that is not the most desirable job because she doesn't really have anything else to fall back on. She can't go back home and she's on the run. So she ends up taking this illicit job on a space station where they keep cryogenically frozen bodies. And when she gets there, her boss, or the person who hires her, who talks to her through a sort of like a floating device, basically is like never actually seen, or at least up until this point, we have not seen this person physically yet. But he's hired her, he's given her this job, she gets room and board, pretty crappy pay, and all she has to do is press a button every 3 hours to show to the higher ups that she is that he is there. So basically she's hired as a proxy for this guy that hired her, because he doesn't want to do himself the job of pushing this button every 3 hours. So she is now alone on this spaceship. Weird things are happening and she's starting to investigate, and that's the point that I am at in the novel right now. So it's getting pretty interesting. I'm liking it so far. I am also in the middle of Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro. I, being relatively new to BookTube, have never heard anyone talk about this book or this author. Maybe I've been living under a rock. I don't know. But I'm really enjoying this one too. Right now I'm on page 380. There's about 600 pages. I just needed to take a break with this book, so I'm probably not going to finish it until April, but I wanted to let you guys know that I am in the middle of it, and I will get back to you as to what my thoughts are. But suffice it to say that I did like it enough to buy book number 2 when I saw it at Book Outlet, because it was, I think, like $9.99 or something like that, which I don't know what it would be in Canadian dollars, but I can see that the US dollar price would be $28.99, which is just crazy. So I like this book enough to already go and preemptively buy the second one in this series. And yeah, I'm gonna finish this one, but probably not this month, because I think there's only like 3 days left of the month, and I'll finish it in April. But there's another book I want to read first, which is Chain Gang All Stars. What a ride. Okay, so this one is about a group of prisoners, kind of like gladiator style, that are chained together, not with using actually iron chains linked together, even though the prisoners themselves are referred to as links in the chain, but they are chained together for fighting purposes and entertainment purposes for the big prisons that are run by corporations, and they're sponsored and things like that, and they have to go in and basically fight each other to the death for the entertainment of the crowds and the financial gain of the corporations that are sponsoring the events and that are in control of the prison system. So hopefully that makes sense. So the chain is basically an invisible chain controlled by magnetic forces. So what happens is, when you're a prisoner and you sign up to this particular program, they install on the inside of your wrist some, I guess, a plate or some sort of bars or something that tether you to a floating mechanism that basically magnetically ties you to this thing. So you can only move around in a certain radius around that platform type floating thing, which the book explains a lot better than I'm explaining it right now. I promise you that. But the people involved in this program, because it's a televised program, naturally, basically have no privacy. You know, they are followed around by these drone-like cameras that go into their personal space, their personal business. If they're getting down and dirty with their significant others, there are cameras there watching that. All their private conversations, although the chain gangs themselves, or the prisoners themselves, as far as I can tell, have no knowledge of what is going on with others like them, because they would have to have access to television like the general public in order to know what was going on with their competitors. So since they don't have that kind of access, they are kind of the only ones that are not in the know about what's going on with the other gangs. But anyone else who is a viewer or a sponsor or a corporate head honcho will always be able to know what is going on with these chain gangs. And basically, yeah, it's like a sci-fi dystopian kind of America situation where big corporations are in charge of the prisons, and people can buy their way out of their sentences by signing up for 3 years to become a sort of gladiator. And yeah, things happen. It's a really great read. I haven't finished it yet, but I am currently on page 191 of about 380 pages or so. So it's going really, really well. I'm going to be concentrating the last 3 days of the month probably on reading this one. And then I have a couple of other library reads, which I think I spoke to you about in a vlog not too long ago. So I'm not going to go through them again now. We can discuss those in the April reads, because going forward, I will be closing off the month of March and just talking to you guys about the books that I complete in April. But I wanted to bring you guys up to speed with where all of this is, because it is a very lengthy vlog, and I don't, you know, I don't want to keep you guys here too long. Otherwise, we won't have anything to discuss next time we do an update. So thank you so much for coming to hang out with me today and listening to my thoughts on the books, as coherent or incoherent as they may have been. I would love if you wanted to leave me a comment to discuss any of the books, my thoughts, your thoughts, anything down below. I would be happy to engage with you in the comments about those things. If you have made it until the end of the video, thank you so much. You know that you are my favorite. Please remember to like and subscribe if you want to have more bookish discussions and vlogs and just, you know, bad editing and bad hair and just, you know, just a real time where we discuss books. And if you like that, I would love to have you here. Thank you so much for being here again, and I will see you again in the next one. Ciao for now.